everyone. My name is Alicia, also known as AVP60685, and I'd like to welcome you to my YouTube channel. For those of you that are just joining me tonight, I know it's actually afternoon, but I just wanted to say tonight in case you're rewatching this later on. So today I thought I'd share some really cool stories about me and my family. I was talking to some of my friends on Twitter, and I was like, you know what? I got a lot of cool stories about my family that you may be interested in hearing, like about how my grandparents met, especially on my father's side. Also about my great grandfather, something really cool about him that you may not know. Also about some of my family background. There's certain things about that that's really cool that I really want to share with you guys. And so, yeah. So and feel free to ask me any questions if you want to know. I mean, I will start on some of the stories and or anything in between. I mean, like I said, my name is Alicia, and there's a lot of cool stories about my family that I've never really disclosed. These are some more lighthearted stories. I've had some in the past that are not so lighthearted, but this one I'm trying to make a little bit more lighthearted, a little bit more fun and everything like that. And so, yeah. So let's get this chat started, shall we? So like I said, feel free to ask me questions if you want to know. I mean, I love sharing fun stories and everything. So this is one of the fun stories I will hopefully share with you guys. Like I said, there are stories about my grandparents. There's stories about my great grandparents. And honest to God, none of these are made up. These are all 100% true. I mean, I can tell you any story you want to know about, like I said, my grandparents, about how they met. I can tell you the story about how my great grandfather and things about his past that I've learned, things about my mom's side of the family. So, and I can also talk a little bit about some fun stories that happened in my childhood that you may be curious to know about. So feel free to ask or suggest the story you want to hear first. So what story do you guys want to hear first? So let me know what story you guys are interested in hearing. I'd love to share it with it. So yeah. There's so many fun stories in my life that have happened that I really want to share with you guys that I think you guys will really enjoy. So yeah, I mean, let me know. So yeah, like I said, my name is Alicia, and also known as AVP. And like I said, I have some really cool stories that I want to share with you guys. But so yeah, like I said, it's a very dreary day, and it's kind of boring. So yeah. like I said, I really want to share some fun stories about my family in case you didn't know. Like I said, there's fun stories about my grandparents, about how they met, things about my great grandfather, or some fun stories from my childhood that I'm really happy to share with you guys. Like I said, there's so many stories from my past that I'd love to talk about. And don't worry, these are all clean stories. It's something that you can enjoy and still listen to. That's fine, Bear Bear. Have to do a rain check. Okay, no problem. So, like I said, if you want to know some cool stories about my past, my grandparents, my great grandparents, some stuff from my childhood, let me know so we can talk them together. I mean, like I said, there's fun stories about how my name was chosen. There's fun stories about what my name would have been if I had been actually a boy. There's fun stories about how my grandparents met each other before my father and his twin brother were born. So, yeah, there's a lot of fun stories like that. So, yeah, like I said, there's a lot of stories. Let me put this up here. Like I said, I'd love to know what story you want to hear. Let me know what story you want to hear, because there's a lot of cool stories about my family that. Hey, Moira, how are you? Meow meow. Good to see you. So, like I said, there's a lot of fun stories in my past that I would love to share with you guys, but yeah. Well, hello there, Ruthie. How are you? So, what story do you guys want to hear? Let me know what stories you want to hear, because, like I said, there's a lot of fun stories. Like I said, there's so many stories that I really, really want to talk at least about one, if possible. So, let me know if you're interested. So, let me know which one you want to hear, because, like I said, there's a lot of fun stories about my family that I really want to share, like about my grandparents when they first met each other, my great grandfather, his past, or something fun from my childhood. I mean, like I said, there's so many fun stories out there that, yeah. So just let me know in the comments what you want to hear, and I will start working on that. Just let me know what story you want to hear, because I'd like to do this for at least an hour, talking about fun stories about my parents, grandparents. So yeah. What's my favorite Thomas? Actually, I love all of them in their own way. Hello, Byron, the observer. Good to see you. Thank you so much for coming. So, like I said, there's so many of them. I love all of them. Yeah. So, what story do you guys want to hear? You can start in whatever order you guys want to start in. Okay, grandparents. Okay, great. So, let's set the mood a little bit, shall we? So, grandparents it is. So, my grandparents, I actually never met either one of them. So, I never met them. And so, this goes back to World War II, prior to World War II, actually. My grandparents my grandfather on my dad's side was actually from the South, particularly South Carolina. And my grandmother actually was from Macedonia, the country. Thank you, Moira. So basically, the way they met each other was actually a really fun story. My grandfather was in the really, really cool that she was like a seamstress. She was also a governess. And thanks, story. It's by Irish. Nice to see you. Good to meet you as well. So if you're not subscribed, please subscribe. My first story is about my grandparents and how they met each other. So my grandparents were actually from two different parts of the world. My grandmother was from Macedonia, and the same Macedonia as Alexander the Great and everything like that. That's another story altogether. But anyway, she was from Macedonia. My grandfather was from South Carolina, and he was one of those CCC workers that you used to hear about that were in prior to World War II during the Great Depression, basically. So basically, thanks, Moira. So basically, she came to the States prior to World War II and was living with family members and was in New York. Well, apparently, they were in line to see a movie. My grandmother was in line with, I guess, some friends or whatever. And my grandfather was in his uniform. He was in the Army Air Force before they divided it into two different military groups and everything like that. So the funny thing is, my grandmother dropped either a nickel or a dime when she was in line. And it went rolling down the streets of New York. And my grandmother was not very tall, I was told. She was less than 5 feet tall. She was maybe 4 something. So she's running down the street, and then this big giant of a man who's 6 feet something stomps on the coin. And he stops the coin from rolling down the drain, picks it up and hands it to my grandmother, and they fell in love with each other. And soon afterwards, they got married, and my father and his twin brother were born about 9 months later. And about 3 years later, his youngest brother was born. So that is how my grandparents met each other. So what story do you guys want to hear next? That's one of the stories. So what do you guys think of that story? Thank you, Moira. That was very sweet of you to say that. Because like I said, there's a lot of fun stories like that. So like I said, that's how my grandparents met each other. They were in the line to the movies and chasing it down, the coin. And so, yeah. Thank you. It is warm and fuzzy. So what other stories do you guys want to hear about my great grandparents? That's so sweet, Cryptic. Yes, it's a very sweet story. So what story do you guys want to hear next? My great grandparents, my grandmother's background, what my name would have been if I was a boy, something from my dad's childhood, some fun stories from when I was a baby. What story do you guys want to hear next? Thank you, Lord Raiden. It's nice to see you. And if you're not subscribed, please, please, please subscribe, guys, to my channel. I would appreciate that. It would mean a lot to me. Okay, so my great-grandparents actually goes back to prior to World War II and prior to the Great Depression. I would say maybe about late 1890s. So thank you, Abu. Appreciate that. So the story takes place, so I'll put this up so you guys know what I'm talking about. My family goes back really far, Cryptic. On my dad's side, so with this story, my great grandparents, actually it goes back to, I want to say the late 1800s. So let's go back a little bit further than that, though. Thank you, Lord Raiden. Appreciate that. So I would say the story goes back before that. My great-great-grandfather, I think, like during the Civil War, so the 1860s, and he had a son. And Samuel inherited the land that they said whatever land he could walk on and everything like that, he could inherit, and he got. Well, his son, my great-grandfather, actually got married to one woman and had a couple of children with her, and sadly, she died. Then he had a second wife, who was my great-grandmother, who actually comes from Scotland. So I have Scottish ancestry from her. And the third wife was actually the sister of the first wife. So my great-grandfather actually had not one, not two, but 3 different wives at 3 different times in his life. So because he had children by each marriage, some of those children grew up to be more like cousins and everything like that, even though that they were like half brothers, half sisters, and all that kind of stuff. So they were really, really close in age with each other. So that one was really, really interesting that they really met each other, and he had 3 wives, and that the second wife actually came from Scotland originally. And so yeah. So in a way, he married his sister-in-law. That's right, Cryptic. He married his sister-in-law. I mean, like I said, the second wife her name was actually Belle, similar to what you see in the Beauty and the Beast story. Her name was Belle McLaren. I've never seen a photograph of her ever, but like I said, I believe because of her Scottish background and everything like that. And so basically, Belle probably was a redhead. I get the impression because we have redheads and everything like that. So yeah, that was very common back then. Yes, it was more. So that was the funny thing about it, that my great-grandmother was actually from Scotland, and she was named Belle McLaren. And my great-grandfather was actually the man who had 3 wives in that family. So that is the story of my great-grandparents. What story you guys want to hear next? So, hello there, Scott. Good to see you, my good friend. Yes, he did. He just got around, yes. So which one do you guys want to hear next? So let me take this off. Okay, boy name, great. So Irish wants to hear the story about my boy name. So my name is actually Alicia, which is Greek, and it means captivated. Basically, my mom has always defined it as either you like me or you don't. And my middle name is Victoria, hence my username here on YouTube and also on other social media. So my mom found the name in the baby book, and my father originally wanted it to be Charlotte. And my mom said, no, no Charlotte. Absolutely no Charlotte. Absolutely not. So my mom and dad also knew that they needed to pick a boy's name out in case I was a boy. They picked out the boy's name actually before they picked out the girl's name. So, why, thank you. That's so kind of you. So, um, so my dad wanted to find a good name, and yeah, they're Polish is whatever, but anyway. So anyway, my mom and dad picked out a boy's name first, and my name originally would have been Samuel, who was after my great-great-grandfather that I mentioned earlier, the one that was the doctor. And oh, you better quit that out, Scott. So anyway, Samuel was going to be my first name after my great-grandfather, who was the doctor. Yes, you did, Moira. You did call it. My middle name was going to be Samuel Charles. Charles is after my dad's middle name, which was Charles, and also my grandfather on my dad's side. Let me see. I'm sorry. My grandfather on my mom's side. His name is Charlie. So my name would have been Samuel Charles Parker. And so, yeah, that is how I got the name Alicia instead of Charlotte. And that's what my name would have been if I was a boy. So, yeah, there's family history of the names. The Charlotte, like I said, I know it sounds Polish and everything like that, but it's also a feminized version of Charles. So that's why my dad was wanting the name Charlotte. But my mom had had a bad experience with the name Charlotte with the girls that she didn't like. So she said, nope, no Charlotte. Yeah, it does sound like a politician. It does. It really, really does. It sounds like something like that. So, I mean, honestly, it's like, oh my God, it just, yes. It's just like, oh my God. It does sound like a politician. It really, really does. Because honestly, I don't think I would be who I am if I'd been Charlotte or Samuel. Because I don't think Samuel would have been a very popular boy. I really don't. I think Samuel would have probably been very geeked out, deeked out. And so, yeah. So that is the family story of how I got my name Alicia instead of being Samuel. But the funny thing is, there's a funny part of this story that I'm going to add in, We had a dog at the time, and she was a pug. Her name was Samantha. So that would have been very confusing because we called the dog, we didn't call her Samantha, we called her Sam. So if I'd been the boy, Samuel Charles, as Cryptic has said, Samuel Charles, that would have been very confusing, having a baby and a dog with the same name, Sam. Come here, Sam. Are you talking to the baby or are you talking to the dog, honey? So, yeah. That would have been really, really awkward. So, yeah. The reason why my parents didn't name me anything else like Joseph or David and so we've got a lot of family names that are repeated in my family. So there's a lot of Johns, there's a lot of Georges, there's a lot of Davids. A lot of these names keep showing up again and again in my family. The Alicia is the only one in my family, and nobody else has that name except for me and my family. The Victoria, some of us have that name, like my cousin on my dad's side of the family, my dad's twin sisters. Sorry, he didn't have a twin sister, he had a twin brother. His twin brother, let me get that straight. My dad's twin brother has a daughter. That daughter's name is Victoria. Exactly. So basically, my cousin and I both have the name Victoria and are named after our grandmother. And she goes by Victoria now, and I basically go by my first name, Alicia. But there are a few people that call me Vicky. Some call me Victoria. But yeah. So yeah, that was basically the family history of how two of us girls have the name Victoria. And like I said, I would have been Samuel Charles if I was a boy. And it would have been very confusing, especially with the dog. So what other story you guys want to hear? So do you want to hear about my dad's unusual pets? What story do you guys want to hear next? I'll give you guys. Hey, Dark Gift, how are you? Welcome on board, my dear friend. If you guys are not subscribed, please, please subscribe. So, what story do you guys want to hear next? So, like I said, anybody that's interested in joining, let me know. Okay, weird pets. So that is the next story. Okay, so most people have cats and dogs and sometimes fish and birds and stuff like that. So my grandparents and my dad and his twin brother and also his youngest brother lived in Georgia at the time, I want to say. So anyway, but that's not the strange part, Thomas. Let me get to it. So basically, yeah, I've got a very historical memory. Fortunately, as a writer, I love sharing stories. So anyway, they were living in Georgia about the 1960s. And basically, the family history is that they had a fireplace downstairs in the basement and everything like that. And yeah, I have old pictures, Moira. Let me get you one of those pictures. I can find one of them. So, basically, with this fireplace, that they had a fireplace and everything like that, and they really didn't use it that much, except for maybe in the winter time and stuff like that. And no, they were fraternal twins. They couldn't switch. So anyway with this pet, that basically how this came about is that this squirrel, mama squirrel, had built a nest on top of the chimney. Now, squirrels are not the world's best builders, in case you guys didn't know. They're very, very not bright animals. So the mama squirrel, which was very, very dumb, I'll say that much. She was very dumb to do this. She built her nest on top of the chimney, and oh my goodness, silly mama squirrel, guess what? The squirrel's nest falls down the chimney, lands into the fireplace, and then the next morning they hear this loud screechy noise, and they don't know what it is. It's the mama squirrel. Her two babies that she had in the nest, literally, this is no joke, literally were down the fireplace, and they ended up raising those two baby squirrels as their own pets. So that was the funniest thing, that they ended up raising two baby squirrels, and they named them Tom and Jerry. Tom and Jerry became the family pets for a long, long time. And that is how they ended up with these two baby squirrels named Tom and Jerry, and they raised them. And yeah, that was the funniest thing. That it was so crazy. Sadly, one of the baby squirrels, when it got older, let me get this picture out real quick. So let me share the screen. So yeah, you'd think they'd fallen, but no, they were okay. Just so let me get you the picture of the squirrels. This is my dad with one of the squirrels that he had. I'm not sure if this was Tom or if this was Jerry. But yeah, that is the squirrel that my dad had growing up. And that is my dad when he was growing up. Like I said, according to this picture, it was made in May 1964. And so my dad's about 18, 19 years old. And yeah, this was the squirrel he had, and how he ended up owning that pet squirrel. And yeah, it's a really, really cool story. So yeah, here's a picture of my dad with his twin brother. Like I said, as you can see, they are not identical. This is my grandfather. This is my dad's twin brother, George, on the left. My dad is the one on the right. And this is my grandfather, the one that met my grandmother while chasing down that coin in New York City. Yeah, I love those pictures. I really do. It's a great way for me to remember the past. I mean, yeah. And that's my dad when he was a baby. Somebody makes the joke that my dad was calling down lightning, but actually the photograph had ripped. See ya, Cryptic. That's a picture of my mom when she was a baby. She's so cute. She hates the picture, but I love it. And the next one, which is my favorite of my mom. I love this one of my mommy. I absolutely love it. I always think she looks like Shirley Temple in this picture. She's so cute. Let's see, what other picture do I have on here? of my mom. Yeah, that's the one with my mom and her sisters and brothers. She comes from a family of 7. That is my dad when he was in junior high. Like I said, that's my dad with the squirrel that I was telling you guys about earlier. I have all of these on my Facebook. That is my dad when he was younger. That's when my dad was in the Army. That's fine, Moira. That's my mom and her older sister. And the person that she lived with for a while. That's my mom. With some boys she needs to babysit for. That's my mom. That's one of my pictures of my parents when they were young. So sweet. I like that picture a lot. That's a picture of my parents on their wedding day. That's another picture of them. Okay. Another one of my parents. Let's see. Okay. So that's all of those pictures. Let me get you guys a baby picture of me so you guys can see what I was like as a baby. One of my baby pictures, if I can find one. Okay, here we go. Here is one of my baby pictures. You guys get to see one of those. So what story do you guys want to hear next? And like I said, if anybody wants to jump in, you can go right ahead to jump in. What other stories do you guys want to hear? So which other stories do you guys want to hear? Just let me know which one you want to hear. Okay, family legends. Great. So there's actually a family legend that my grandmother, my dad's mom, was originally from Macedonia, as I mentioned earlier. Now, there's a family legend that basically goes back to the days prior to Cleopatra. So we're going way, 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 way back. And basically, there was a well-known, you might call him a general, who literally conquered the thin world at the time. And the thing is, there is a legend in my family that we are related to this famous, famous individual. It's either him or one of his generals. But mostly the legend is that we are related to this individual. And I will let you guys guess who it is. So I will put a vote. See who do you think it is. So let's see what you guys think. Was it? Which one do you think I'm related to? A. Genghis Khan, B. Napoleon, C. Alexander the Great. So I'll let you guys do those votes. So who do you guys think it is? Genghis Khan, Napoleon, or Alexander the Great? Which one do you think the family history is that we're related to? So which one do you think it is? Nope. It's not Genghis Khan. Nope. Try again. It is not Genghis Khan, though. It's not him. So who do you think it is? Thomas thinks it's Genghis Khan in some ways, but nope. Who do you think I am related to? You guys see what I know what I look like somewhat. I'll give you if I can. So it's not Genghis Khan. Genghis Khan is not the choice. You guys look like. So I obviously am not Asian. So do you give up? Because it's not Genghis Khan. I can assure you it's not Genghis. So like I said, it's either him which I said is either Napoleon or Alexander the Great. So, like I said, I am related to one of them according to the family legend. The family legend has always said that we are related to this one or his general, but the legend goes that we are definitely related to this individual. Nope, not Napoleon. You are incorrect, my dear Thomas. The answer is Alexander the Great. So we are supposedly descendant to Alexander the Great or one of his generals. So it makes sense when you think about it because Alexander the Great was from Macedonia along with his father and mother. And so because of my grandmother on my dad's side of the family, she was really from Macedonia. And it's a good possibility that because of her being from Macedonia that we inherited Alexander the Great. So the family legend is that we are descended from Alexander the Great or one of his generals because of my grandmother being from that area. So yeah, that's basically the family legend on how that happened. And there's also another family legend story about how my grandparents met, but I'll say that in case you guys want to hear that one. So what other story do you want to hear? Like I said, I got a lot of stories that about my family. What other story do you guys want to hear about me and my family that I can share with you? Very happily, I'll share it. So what other story do you guys want to hear? Hello, Joe. How are you? Good to see you, my good friend. Okay, childhood memories. There's a lot of fun stories. So one of them is um that basically when I was a baby, my dad and mom and me, I must have been about less than 2 years of age. So my dad was playing the game Sing a Song of Sixpence. And basically there's a line in that little nursery rhyme that says, nipped off her nose. Where along it says, along came a black. Let me see if I can pull up the poem real quick. Okay, so this one is a nursery rhyme that most kids learn when they're really, really little. And it says, sing a song of sixpence, a pocket full of rye, 4 and 20 blackbirds baked in a pie. When the pie opened, the birds began to sing. Wasn't that a dainty dish to set before the king? The king was in the counting house counting out his money. The queen was in the parlor eating bread and honey. The maid was in the garden hanging out the clothes, and along came a blackbird and snipped off her nose. Now, my dad kept snipping at my nose, and my mom told him to leave me alone. And my dad didn't listen, so I did actually snip off his nose because I was much too little to learn. But basically, even though I didn't have that much teeth, I basically bit down on the top of his nose area. And my mom had to literally turn her head away and start to keep from laughing. Because she said, I told you to leave her alone. She doesn't like to be messed with. Leave her alone, leave her alone, leave her alone. And so because my dad didn't listen, I ended up snipping on his nose with my, at the time, little baby teeth. So like I said, the poem goes, in case you missed it, was sing a song of sixpence, a pocket full of rye, 4 and 20 blackbirds baked in a pie. When the pie was opened, the birds began to sing. Wasn't that a dainty dish to set before the king? The king was in the counting house counting out his money. The queen was in the parlor eating bread and honey. The maid was in the garden hanging out the clothes. Along came a blackbird and snipped off her nose. So the lesson of this story is do not keep messing with your baby and snipping off their nose, especially when you're trying to grab their nose from the top of it and act like you're going to throw it away. Don't keep doing that because babies are very, very agitated, especially this little baby was. So yeah, that was a fun story from my childhood. Another childhood memory is that basically I grew up learning how to speak French at a very young age. I was basically in an immersion school. Hey, MacGyver, how are you? And so I basically had to learn how to speak French when I was very, very little. Basically, all my conversations went from the minute I came into the schoolhouse, where you basically learn how to speak French. Basically, you would say, Bonjour, comment ça va? Je suis Alicia, comment ça va? Mon école est Rogers Heights Elementary École. So basically, we were speaking in French, we were writing in French, we were reading in French, we were listening to music in French. So we would hear songs like Frère Jacques, which is basically about a dead monk. There's also ones about, all right, sounds good, Dark Gift. Thank you so much for coming on board, my friend. I appreciate that. So basically, we had to listen to some of these fairy tales. One of them we saw at the French embassy, and we saw some of them that were a little bit disturbing. One was called Donkey Skin. There was one called Bluebeard, and that one is a really creepy fairy tale that we actually saw performed at the French embassy. So basically, it happens where Bluebeard is newly married and basically he tells her to stay out of the basement, basically. So let me see if I can find that really quick. Where is that one? Okay. Here it is. It says, basically, this is according to the Wikipedia page. So it's a fairy tale that first appeared in French. So it says, a rich man has a blue beard which frightens young women. He has been married several times, but no one knows what has happened to his wives. He wooes 2 young sisters in the neighborhood, but neither are inclined to consider marriage. He treats them to a lavish time in his country house. The younger sister decides to marry him. Shortly after the wedding, and before he travels far to a far land on business, Bluebeard gives his wife the keys to the house. When he opens the door to a distant room, he forbids her to enter this room. He leaves, and his wife opens the door to the forbidden room. Here she finds Bluebeard's former wives all dead and lying on the floor, all covered with blood. She drops a key, it is magic, and it becomes stained with blood that cannot be washed away. Bluebeard returns and he discovers the bloodstained key and knows that his wife has disobeyed his order. He tells her he will take her place among the dead. He grants her a few minutes to pray. She calls her sister and asks to go on top of the tower to see if her brothers are on the road. After several tense moments, Anne reports seeing the men approaching. Bluebeard raises a cutlass to kill his wife. Her brothers burst into the wound. They kill Bluebeard. Their sister is safe. There's one version basically is that where she gives him all the keys except for the bloodied. The one we learned basically is he Bluebeard marries this young woman as it still happens, but the thing is in the story it shifts where she gives him all the keys except for the one for that room. And he says, "Where's that one key?" And she keeps trying to say she lost it. She lost it. And eventually she gives it back to him, and it's really, really ugly and bloody because she went into that room. And so he finds out that she went into that room, and instead of she calling her brothers and all that, she basically literally she literally gets killed by Bluebeard in the end. So yeah, that's really, really gross. But that was one of the stories we learned in French class. There's a story about a girl who has all these beautiful clothes and a dragon burns them up and she has to wear this paper sack. So we learned stories like that in childhood. So basically, in childhood, I learned a lot of these stories very, very. And we would hear these stories and we'd learn them very, very quick. And we would speak them. And so, yeah, I mean, yeah, it's a really gruesome story. But that was one of the things we learned. We learned stories like that. There's a story, Alouette basically is talking about killing a baby duck. And you're learning all the parts of the duck as it's being ripped off. Because it's like, and the head, and then the wings, and the feet, and the legs of this poor little baby duck. So, yeah, I mean, that was a really gruesome story. That was some of the childhood stories. So, anyone else? And if anybody wants to jump on, you can. Oh, I hope it wasn't because of me, MacGyver. Yeah, he will be on soon. I'm trying not to tie you guys up so you guys can go see PJ. So, yeah. Yeah, he's doing one with I want to say her name's Katie. He's doing a string with her. So yeah. Where did I grow up? That's a good question. So I grew up in a Maryland, where I still am. I grew up in a town that's known as Bladensburg, and it's basically 15 minutes away from Washington, D.C. So I'm between D.C. and Baltimore. Annapolis is over 2 hours away, but Baltimore is about an hour away from here, depending on traffic. So basically, where I grew up is between DC and Baltimore. It's a very medium-sized town. And I now live about 4 miles away from where I grew up. I've been there, and yeah. But I went to school in a different town. I didn't go to middle school with the local neighborhood school. I basically went to one that was for the French immersion students. And I went to my neighborhood high school. Technically, I didn't go to my neighborhood elementary school. The reason why I got to go in there is because my parents had entered me into this lottery of sorts. And basically, if you entered the lottery and you won, your child was entered into the French immersion program. And you basically were enrolled in that school program until you left in the 6th grade, unless you transferred to other schools. And so I stayed with that until 8th grade. And instead of keeping it up in high school, because my high school, the neighborhood high school, only had the basic level of French, and I'm much more advanced than basic level of French. My French is almost high school level, you might say. Not quite college level, but it's very, very advanced. I mean, I've had native speakers tell me, you sound much better than me, and you put me to shame. So I still speak it to people that exclusively speak to me in French. I used to speak to, at the time, he was like a boyfriend. That's what I can put it. He was like a boyfriend, and we used to chat on Skype. And basically, we would talk exclusively in French. He'd wake me up sadly sometimes, but that was not his fault. It was basically because he had forgotten that there was 6 hours difference between the United States and France, because there's 6 hours between us. And that was the case. A favorite story to tell. For me, What would be a favorite story to tell? There's so many stories from my life that have happened. I share most of the not so pleasant ones. I've shared ones about some that weren't so fun, like my attempted kidnapping that happened when I was 8 years of age. That one's not such a fun story. I basically grew up very sheltered from the outside world, and I basically grew up learning about sci-fi books and certain television shows like Star Trek, Star Wars. All of that became an outlet for me, and I basically turned to my books and to my writing as my only friends. And so I didn't have a lot of childhood friends growing up. Some of the friends I hung out with were boys because I was very tomboyish. So, basically, sorry, I'm rambling, but basically, the only way I can put it is because of my parents being very protective of me and everything. So, how do I put this? They were very protective of me, and I basically hung out with just myself. A lot of times, I basically kept my I just basically stuck with ink pens and pencils and books, and that's the only way I can put it. It's just I wanted friends. Don't get me wrong. It's just I can be very, very shy. I don't want to be. It's just I don't know. Yeah, that's the only way I can put it. Is they were very, very, very protective of me. My parents were, and yeah, that's the only way I can put it. Is my parents were very protective of me, and yeah, that's the only way I can put it. Is that I was very protected, and I mean, if you guys want to head over to Orville Nation's live stream that he's doing, you guys are welcome to do that. It's just I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I mean, there's so many things that have happened in my life that I wouldn't say there's a favorite story of my childhood per se, because there's so many things that have happened. I mean, having protective parents, growing up in the French immersion program, losing friends, getting into gaming. So, um, yeah, I really can't say I have a particular favorite of growing up because it wasn't. Yeah, I'll be there in a bit, Joe. So, yeah, I don't have much else to say, guys. So, I want to thank you all for coming, listening to my stories. Um, I can always do this again tomorrow for those of you that didn't get to tune in. And I appreciate all the love and support you guys have been giving. And I will see you guys on my next stream, whenever that is. And you guys have a wonderful, wonderful day. Thank you so much for showing up. MacGyver, Joe, Thomas, MacGyver, Thomas, Cryptic, Moira, Dark Gift Comics, stories by Irish. Yeah, so thank you all so much for coming. I really appreciate that. I will see you guys another time. Have a blessed day. Bye.